What if AI doesn't replace engineers and producers? It just replaces the ones that refuse to adapt. Today, I'm gonna be reacting to a video by an audio engineer named Mix Coach, talking about the changes in AI and how he sees producers and engineers using it to our advantage. This is a video by a very experienced engineer who has a lot of insight on the different changes through the different eras of music. So make sure you stay tuned to the very end of this video because you're gonna walk away with a ton of value. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Have you ever worked with AI and thought, AI is going to take my job one day? Well, I've been doing a little bit of work with AI this week, and I've got a couple of thoughts I'd like to share them with you, if you don't mind. So I'm driving, and the example I thought of is like, one of the things that I teach on Mix Coach is like, and I teach my daughter this when I'm driving, when I'm teaching her to drive, she's 15. I say, always look 3 cars ahead of you. Don't just look at the car in front of you, because by the time that car slams on the brakes, it's too late. Look 3 cars in front of you, because the 3 cars in front of you are going to be the indicator of what the car right in front of you is going to do. So what does that have to do with AI? Well, here's what it has to do with AI. AI is here. It's not going away, and it's great. I used it yesterday. So here's the stats that I looked up last night. 18% of all music uploads that are happening on Spotify and some of the major platforms, 18% are 100% created from AI. 18%, and that number is going to go up, I guarantee it. That's not including the stuff that is partially created in AI. 97% of the listeners can't tell the difference whether it's AI 100% or not. Matter of fact, I had a lady the other day that said, there's an artist I want you to listen to, they're amazing. So he gave it to me, and I thought, that sounds funny to me. That sounds like a voice I've heard before. And sure enough, I looked it up, and this blues artist that was on Spotify was a young Korean girl, and I forget her name, but it's 100% AI.
You know, that's the thing when it comes to producers and engineers. You know, we listen to so much audio each and every day that we can tell the little strange artifacts or the little strange phasiness that happens whenever we're listening to AI recording artists. But the everyday person, the average music consumer who's not into the background stuff, it's not really going to tell a difference. They're just like, hey, this music sounds good. It feels good. I like the groove. Something might sound a little off to them, and that's a maybe if they have a really sharp ear. That's the thing, man. AI it's inevitable. Pandora's box has already been opened. Let's go ahead and get back into this video.
You can't ignore it. I don't know what the future holds of AI, and you can go back and forth about it. Say, I don't want to be involved in AI. I don't, it's going to take my job, or it's creepy, and it is, and it's also very good, and it's also something that I've heard is going to create more millionaires and billionaires in the next few years than the whole internet did, when it first came out, because there was a lot of internet millionaires, people doing, YouTube videos and things like that. It's coming. It's not going away. I don't know what the future holds of it, but I know that you can't ignore it. You can't just look at the car in front of you, and you can't just say, I'm not going to worry about this until it directly affects me personally. You got to look ahead a little bit.
There definitely are a segment of people who want to just bury their heads in the sand and say, blah, 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 I don't want to hear it. I'm not touching AI. It's all fake. And they don't even want to pay attention to what's happening. They don't even want to see the different tools that are being created and how they're being used. Even if you find yourself in a camp where you don't want to use AI, where you feel like it's totally unethical, I would say still be informed, still be abreast of the things that are going on, so that way you'll know how to navigate the landscape. If you just turn your head and just do everything the old school way. And if you work with clients and, they're going to have changing expectations as these different AI tools get better and better, then, what are you going to do? At least if you're informed, you can create just different workarounds, other solutions that are possibly comparable to what the different AI tools and platforms can do. But don't just totally write it off. At least see what it's going to do, see how it's functioning, and then find your own particular way of satisfying your customers if you do want to be totally anti-AI. I would say personally, just keep informing yourself and find a way to add it into your workflow. And if you have to minimize it and keep it small, then minimize it and keep it small and let the rest of the human creatives around it help power your system. But let's go ahead and get back into the video.
You got to look ahead a little bit. So what choice do we have but to learn it? And that's what I would recommend to you. So yesterday, a friend of mine, a coaching student, sends me a set of tracks, and he says, these tracks didn't get multi-tracked. These are tracks that were recorded from our phones, and we're trying to put them together, and you just wanted some, I guess, confirmation, insight from me. So I listened to it, and of course I looked at all my AI tools. I looked at, the Isotope RX to keep reverb happening, and even though the AI tools are not perfect, they're really good. So one of the things I did was I uploaded a track into Suno, the drum track that we were trying to salvage, and I gave it a prompt, which I think this is a whole nother subject too, but asking the right questions means a lot. It will make all the difference if you're curious enough to ask the right questions. So what I told the prompt was, I asked it to recreate this drum track with an 80s drum sound, which is what we were going for. I said, don't add any more instruments. Of course, I'm just learning to use Suno as well. But within 10 seconds, it created a whole track, not just drums, bass, and I pasted my prompt. The reason it created bass and everything is because I pasted my prompt into the lyrics field. So it was singing back my prompt to me, which was kind of funny. But the bottom line is that it created something in like 10 or 20 seconds that would have taken a whole band many hours to do in the studio. Plus it was mixed, plus it was mastered, plus it was ready to change anything on a whim with no complaining. So AI is a fascinating tool.
Yes, this is exactly what I was talking about. Platforms like Suno it's gonna change the expectations that recording artists have with us as producers and engineers. You see how quickly he was able to create a drum track, a bass track. I've mentioned before, I work with session musicians. Sometimes I have to be like, okay, play it like this. Okay, play it like that. Change it like this. But with platforms like Suno, you could just type it in and then it just quickly does what you wanted it to do. And then maybe you could just do a couple little tweaks here and there. Then bam, it's totally done. But at the same time, it does cut out the human element, the experience of working with people in the studio, the happy accidents that could possibly happen, the other ideas, the stories, the conversations that, really make music impactful. But technology is a real thing. And if we're talking especially to younger recording artists and they have all these tools, at their disposal, and, if you're a working producer or engineer, they're going to be like, hey, I was just at this other studio. They changed the drums in like 10 minutes. It's taking you forever. You're clicking, you're adding this, you're doing that. You're trying to stack the drums. We were done in like, 15 minutes. What's taking you so long? And that's a real thing. That's some real pressure. So guys, don't duck your head in the sand. Learn these tools. If you want to create some type of hybrid approach, definitely do that. But this example that he just told in the story here, Mix Coach, man, I'm telling you, that's a real thing, and this is going to keep happening. In the next year or so, all my producers, all my engineers out there work at commercial facilities or even independent. You need to be able to do that. I'm telling you, you need to be able to get in Suno and do that, or else you're going to have some very, very upset independent recording artists looking at you. So let's go ahead and get back into the video.
And it's something that we're going to have to learn if we're going to survive. I'm talking to myself as much as anybody because I have to push myself across the limit. So, okay, so one more story. Back in the, I think it was the early 80s when I was just coming up, drum machines had just come out. The EMU emulator, drum emulator, the Lin drum was out. The the 2000 from Akai had just come out, and these were machines that a lot of drummers were like, some of them were fascinated with them, some of them were scared to death of them because they thought, this drum, if it's got all the best sounds of it, and you only have to pay it once, and all you have to do is program in where the kick and snare is, then why are they going to need drummers? Well, the smart drummers, I think, were the ones that adapted to the situation. They're the ones that said, there was an engineer named Jeff Lynne that said drum machines can't swing, which that was quickly fixed. But Jim Keltner, on the song I've Got My Mind Set on You that George Harrison covered, they had built a track on this and it's a famous beat, but that is an EMU or an EMU emulator, drum emulator. And that ended up being the sound of it because a drummer basically learned to use it best. Nobody's going to hear what a good mix is or what a good vocal is better than a musician who has spent years of their life learning their craft. So your best shot of getting in on the AI wave is in the beginning when everybody else is afraid of it. So
that's a real interesting perspective. So all my producers and engineers out there, do you want to make sure that you're ahead of the curve, that you're masters of AI? If you make beats, if you play an instrument, if you mix, if you record, do you want to educate yourself and learn these tools to the point that you kind of, start to perceive yourself as an expert in these different AI tools? So that way, when the market just starts to adapt more and more and expand more and more, you're not a person who's, ignorant to how to use these tools. You're an expert at them, and then you use them to help your clients, to help your customers, achieve their desired results. Who else is going to have the perspective? Who else is going to have the taste? Who else is going to have the proper context on how to use these tools to achieve the best results than an expert at the particular creative field, as opposed to somebody who's just maybe a business person who sees a whole bunch of opportunities and just jumps on them and makes a bunch of money, but they don't have any type of creative taste to actually achieve really, really high quality results that should be in the hands of the actual creative. So, this is a real interesting take, man, but let's go ahead and get back into the video.
The George Harrison song has a drum machine on it. And I think at that point, probably everybody said, okay, well, maybe I can use this tool that I thought was formed against me, right? I just thought that was an interesting story that Jim Keltner was I love his drumming, but I love his drum machining too. So anyway, here's just a couple of tips. First of all, nobody's going to hear AI like you do. You are still probably able to tell whether it's real or not, and you can tell if a vocal is putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. You can tell if the vocal lines up with the way you were thinking about it. Think of AI as not necessarily a replacement for you, but it's the world's fastest assistant. It's the assistant that can help you think of a line when you can't think of a line. Don't use it to 100% create a song. Use it to help you through a song. Don't use Suno to create your tracks, maybe use Suno for your demo to get it going in the right direction. Maybe if you're tired of the same instrumentation you have, maybe you learn how to create prompts that are going to give you the advantage of the sound.
That's an interesting point. You know, I actually made a reaction video to a independent recording artist just making like an acoustic kind of indie rock demo, and then they placed it into Suno, and Suno just totally polished it and just switched the genres and just man, it just had an entirely different energy as opposed to the original version. And you can just keep switching genres. And like they say, a well-written song can be expressed in multiple different musical genres. So it translated well, and it gave a lot of perspective that, you know, possibly that artist wouldn't have came up with, especially by themselves. Go ahead and get back into the video.
So let me just end up by saying this. I heard this quote from somebody, probably somebody marketing to me, but I thought it was a quote, and I think about it every day. The question I asked was, are you going to lose your job to AI? And I would say no. The answer is you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI better than you do. So my advice to you is this: look a few more cars ahead. Look ahead of what is directly affecting you, and keep in mind that 3 cars up, something is developing that's going to affect you. Look 3 cars ahead, and maybe you won't be caught by surprise, okay? All right.
Another great point. I think as of right now, a lot of us are just looking 1 car ahead because it just seems so powerful. It seems so big. It seems like a really big change relatively quickly. I could just remember a year ago where AI was at, and then now it's so much, it's so incorporated into my daily life. It's not even funny. And it happened so quickly. And I think if we are going to look 3 cars ahead, we definitely need to always be informed. And that's a part of the reason why I make these type of reaction videos here on my YouTube channel. Let's make sure we keep the conversation going. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe. My name is Desmond A, and I'll be back with more great videos. Peace. Wait, before you go, make sure you go to DesmondASounds.com, where you can get free FL Studio patcher plugins, free loops, free guides, everything you need to level up your music production. Once again, go to DesmondASounds.com or click the link in the description. Go there now and totally transform your music production.